Hi there, everybody. I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. This is my co-host, Princess Gracious Gracie. And you can find us on the web on Facebook and YouTube by typing in metaspeak.com. And you can find me on Blog Talk Radio. You can find me on Blog Talk Television. And type in so when they get to metaspeak.com, they type in Linda Bennett or Metaspeak. Everything will pop up that's on our website. In fact, I have a recommended reading list and television show reading list. And the television show has to keep being updated. But I would recommend you watch the Discovery Channel, Discovery 2, the History Channel, Channel 50, which is, I think, Lifetime here. There's a really good show on Saturday nights with Kim Russo, who's a good medium and good psychic. And she goes to various different old homes. She went to an asylum recently, and she tries to release the souls. And she'll take a celebrity with her who has talked about a particular incident in their lives, and they'll go back and make the discoveries as to what exactly happened there. She's really good. She's really one of the legitimate ones.
You're legitimate too.
I'm legitimate as well. I do psychic consultations over the phone. My number is 727-736-4567. That was my executive producer, Shawnee, and my videographer, Mr. Miles. And Gracious Gracie is now trying to climb into my lap under the table, which is not what I had in mind. Okay, you think, well, why do you put up with her? Because she's so cute. She's so adorable. I have to show you just one Christmas picture. And my videographer is going to put them up for you. I think you can see this. Oh, now you know what she's doing? She's pulling on my kimono, which I'll talk about in a second. This is the princess, and she's wearing her Santa hat. Guess what holiday it was? And she's being scratched, and she looks like she's in heaven. If she starts tugging on the top of this kimono, I'm going to be cranky. She's down on the ground. She actually has removed the entire hem from one of my robes. She just got the end of it in her teeth, and she just walked out of the bathroom, down into the bedroom, down the hallway, and it just kept unraveling and unraveling and unraveling. We're going to show some of these pictures to you later, or maybe Miles can fit them in for you while we're talking about the little princess. And again, I said last time, and I'm going to remind you, which is why I have Pegasus right here. In Chinese astrology, it's the year of the horse, green and wood. And I have a evergreen branch that I have Pegasus sitting in at my front door. And what I'm wearing, you will recognize as a kimono. And you're going to say to yourself, you know, I have a kimono, Linda. I never wear it because the thing doesn't have pockets. Well, you're not using it right, boys and girls, because a kimono has, as I throw my fan, has room for your fan right here. You insert it carefully. You drop it in, and no one is the wiser. And what you also have is your tissue. My friends always laugh because no matter what I'm wearing, I have a tissue. I even gave, and it's always a fresh tissue, I even gave clothes to the spouse abuse shelter. And what was in all the pockets? Tissues. Fresh tissues, but you can put a myriad of things there, and the pocket hangs down, and you're fully loaded, ladies. So you don't have to worry. You could put a lipstick in there if you were going out for the evening. So I'm wearing a kimono because I love kimonos and I feel comfortable in them. And we're doing a very serious discussion tonight. We are going to be talking about death experiences, people in comas, and why are you waving your hand no?
Your necklace is now in the microphone.
The necklace is now in the microphone. Is it out of the microphone?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. And now the cat's back trying to pull the kimono off. You know, the things I have to put up with. But I wanted to remind you about the year of the horse because the horse brings strength to overall circumstances. Everybody this year will feel some kind of part of themselves, either mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, stronger, if you tune in and listen to the universe. So the horse brings strength, but the horse can also be obstinate. I don't know if you ever rode. I used to love riding. And now she's eating the plant. I used to love riding, and It's interesting. Any idiot who thinks that animals don't have souls and don't have a consciousness and don't have minds of their own is crazy. Whether it's a pussycat, a puppy dog, a goldfish. I used to have fish till the tank crashed. That's another topic. And horses. Either they like you or they don't, and they never change their minds. They might mind for a while, but if they don't like you, they don't like you. And they don't like you because you're wearing a certain shirt. They like you because of your soul. Animals see soul energy. And we're all souls. Just like you change your clothes tonight when you go take your shower and you put your jammies on. Tomorrow you take a shower to wash off the nighttime activities in the astral world and you put your clothes on. You're the same soul. You're just in different costumes. Same thing with what people call death or transition or on the other side. Doesn't matter. And that relates to what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is people in comas. But the horse will bring you some kind of information, and they can either be stubborn or like Ganesha, who was the elephant god, elephant head, man's body, and Hinduism. He'll get in your way. If he doesn't want you to do something, he won't go that way if you're riding. Or he'll run right in front of you and you have to stop. And he wants you to pay attention to what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you are going to be doing in the future. Why is she now eating my plant? I don't know. Because nobody's paying attention to her. So the year of the horse, bring in an evergreen branch. You can trim the leaves off it. It's still an evergreen branch. You don't want the little twiggies falling all over the place. And set it near your front door. If you have a second one, and it can be a picture. I showed a picture in the last show. A little statue. I love this statue. You can order them online. Just type in Pegasus or horse if you don't love Pegasus. The reason I love Pegasus is because he travels with the Archangel Michael for healing. And the Archangel Michael helps me in many different situations, especially when I'm doing chakra balancing, which is the balancing of the different major energy centers. We have 144 in our body, but we have 7 major centers that the others feed off. And Pegasus is always standing right next to me on the right-hand side, and is he gigantic. I've ridden very large horses because even though I'm shorter, I'm 5'4", once upon a time, for a very short while, I was the tallest in the group. How that happened, I have no idea. But I was given the biggest horse. And I want to tell you, looking up, that's kind of daunting. So Pegasus is even bigger than that. And he's a wonderful symbol of spiritual upliftment and spiritual awareness and spiritual enlightenment. So the year of the horse brings fortune and expansion and good luck to people who are paying attention, and it'll knock you right on your tiny little tush if you're not paying attention. So it's a good year for business. It's a good year for making new ventures. It's a good year for new starts, new beginnings. Even if you're in a marriage and you want to recommit, it's a wonderful opportunity to start again and do it right this time, or to start a brand new venture and do it right. But tonight we are going to be talking about, we had one of our viewers contact us and talk about what happens in a coma and what's an appropriate time to stay in that coma. Now, I won't mention the last name because I think the family's been dragged through the mud long enough. But there was the very famous case nationwide. The girl's first name was Terry. And I don't remember how she wound up in that coma. Was that a car accident? We don't even remember. There was a battle between the husband and the girl's parents. She was brain dead. And in times prior to this, where everybody's kept alive for endless years, when they're not really there, the parents kept bringing court case after court case after court case not to detach the equipment, even though she was in the fetal position and she was being kept alive by these machines. The husband had already remarried. No, he hadn't remarried. He remarried afterwards. The husband was already living with somebody else and had his own family, and they were mad at him for that. They wanted to have him sit there staring at the basically dead body day after day, which is an incredible cruelty. It's always karmic. Remember, everything in life is karmic. Your astrology chart doesn't tell you whether to get out of bed that day or not. It tells you, it's a menu. It tells you major events and major times of these events that are going to take place in your life. It's not silly. If it's done right, it's very revealing. I don't do charts anymore because the way I do them is color code them and have the explanations in the different houses. So in the next 500 years, you'll be able to tell what your astrology chart was. And you'll be able to understand it yourself. So, but if you can find a really good astrologer in your area, that would be fantastic. Because again, the event is going to happen, but it's how you respond to it that determines whether or not you learn your lesson. So being in a coma is not only physiological, but it happened for a reason. Maybe you are meant to take time out and review your life. And there are different stages of coma. You can be in a coma because they put you on a respirator and you're hooked up to all kinds of machines, but you're really basically dead. Or you can be in a coma that's even induced so that a healing can take place, but you'd be in too much pain. They do that a lot with burn victims or people who have had complications in surgery or extensive trauma, say in a car accident. And they keep you there so you can be healed and you're fed nourishment through a tube. And then eventually they bring you slowly out of it. A lot of people who are injured in war have this situation. But you've had a chance to heal without external problems and needing to eat, go to the bathroom and all that other stuff. You're just completely taken care of. That's one thing. But if you were in a tragic situation and you're brain dead, you should be allowed to be detached from the machines. And some states have that law. And some states have the law that they look at your will, which everybody should have a will. When you get to the age of consent, which in most states is 18, you can go online and get a will made out, and it's simple. I leave everything to my parents, I leave everything to my sister, my brother, my girlfriend, whatever. And I do not want to be having extreme measures to keep me alive. Now, to one doctor in one hospital, extreme measures can mean one thing. To another place, it could mean something else. So you need to specify. I don't want to be kept on, and this is in my will, I don't want to be kept on a respirator or artificial means for more than 3 days. Unless they put me in a coma to induce something because something happened and they're fixing it. I do not want to live my life on a respirator, because even though your physical body is dead, your soul is attached to it still. Not completely, but partly, because it's your body. And you don't want it inhabited by a troublesome spirit, because that does happen. Remember the concept of zombies, where they were given curare, which is the poisonous frog from Central and South America, and they were put in a state of stupor and buried with an air pocket, and then they're brought up, or they were kept in a cave or something like that, and they're brought back, but they're not the same. It can take them years or maybe never for them to come back because their brains are damaged. That's what happens. If you leave the body completely and take off into the astral world, as long as the body is breathing, it can be inhabited by someone else. I didn't really expect to talk about this today, but it can literally be possessed by somebody else. Could be a nice person who's just looking for a body, or it could be a demonic spirit. So the soul is looking to protect the body that it just wants to exit from, not only to have respect for the body because it transports the soul on a physical planet, but because of the family members involved. If you love your family members, if you love your spouse, if you love children, you want to make sure that the body is protected and it's not taken over by a bad spirit. So you leave maybe 10, 15, 20% of your soul, and it stretches like the long strand of bubble gum. And It goes wherever it wants to go. It'll see who's got chocolate cake. It'll go visit people who have crossed over. It'll go to another part of the astral world. It'll go check out another planet that it might be thinking about inhabiting in the next lifetime. But the consciousness is still streaming back and forth, that you're hooked up to machines, they won't let you die, and you want to be out, but you're connected to your body because you want to protect it. That's hell. Not the hell, which is one of the lower astral levels, without the lack of God, without the presence, with the lack of God, without the presence of angels, without the presence of good spirits. That's a different situation. But it's a nightmare beyond expectations, beyond imagination, to be trapped. Think of yourself as stuck in a cellar or stuck in an underground cave, like what happens to miners all the time in China and South America because they don't have the same regulations, and it happens periodically in this country. They're trapped in the dark, very little air, can't breathe, but their consciousness is still partly there. Many of those miners talked about blacking out and feeling like they were going somewhere else. They were. They were having near-death experiences. So the soul is stuck. Well, people are bickering, take the machine off, put the machine on, don't touch it, touch it. Let the person go at a reasonable time. Heart death is different from brain death. The heart can be damaged, but the brain cannot have suffered any lack of oxygen, so the brain is functioning completely, and if the person could wake up, they would. Oftentimes, they can correct the situation that's wrong with the heart, get it started, the person pops awake. That's fine. But if you're going to have someone who's going to live like a vegetable, staring into the air, that's not life. But the karma is that you are put in this position. Why? Perhaps you abused your body in several lifetimes. You didn't take care of it. Drinking, smoking, drugs, carousing. Perhaps you're one of these professional soldiers that constantly puts himself or herself in danger. Perhaps you were a warrior tribe and you kept killing off other people. And what you don't understand is that you can be stabbed 50 times. Well, somebody was stabbed 37 times recently in a murder case and they didn't die. That's because they didn't hit any vital organs and they didn't cut any major arteries. They lived, but they suffered. Maybe you caused that to somebody else. So it's your turn to be aware of the fact that you're alive, but you're in pain, or you're in misery, or you're being emotionally tortured, and you're paying that back. Maybe when you're in the astral world before you were born this time, you said, I've got a lot of health karma to take care of. Can we do it in all one lump sum? And because we're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and enthusiastic, you think, I'll just lay in a coma for 3 years. And you think, well, 3 years is nothing in space and time. I'll be able to endure it. I'll be fine. And 3 Earth years comes along, and you are miserable. So you're paying back a lot of health karma. But if you're a good soul and you didn't abuse yourself, it's just a lot of health karma that you didn't finish, that maybe you died too early or whatever, you will be kept out of pain. And that is merciful. But being kept in a coma is not. So the soul is traveling up on the ceiling and saying, will you let me out of here? And you're looking at everybody arguing over the situation. You look at the doctors arguing. You're looking at the doctors with their attorneys saying, you can't disconnect now. It's not a consensus of the family, and they'll bring a lawsuit. Because believe me, that's the #1 concern of hospitals. Maybe not all doctors. There are doctors who are true healers. But there are doctors who are healers and mechanics and lawyers. So they're looking out for themselves. And to be perfectly legitimate, there are many people who are looking for a lawsuit. And so they don't care what really good doctor's reputation they wreck. They just want a big lawsuit, want a big bank day, So doctors are trying to make sure that they don't get punished. It could also be that this is a forced situation upon you. The angels have said, if you don't want the next 50 lifetimes where you live in torture and misery, you've got to pay back a lot of serious karma. There's a show on earlier on the military channel about the Nazis. Saddam Hussein was as bad as the Nazis. What's going on in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, all those crazy fundamentalist nuts that want women to be back in a cave and giving birth, and if they die, they die. They're crazy fanatics who make themselves crazy, and they're going to have to pay back that karma. For every child whose face they threw acid in, or whose legs they broke because they were going to school because they want to learn, for every wife they beat to shreds, they're going to have to suffer. So what can happen is they get put in a coma, and the medication that is supposed to kill the pain isn't completely working. The same thing happens in surgery. The average statistic that they're revealing, because not all hospitals report this, the average statistic is that 30% of patients are basically awake during their surgeries, feeling every bit of pain. But they can't speak because the medication they're given first paralyzes the nerves and the muscles in the body. It's more than just taking a diazepam, which is Valium. It's they simply are unable to speak. So they can't scream, they can't yell, they can't moan, and yet they're feeling all of the agony. That's karma as well. They've done the same kinds of things. They've tortured people. They've murdered people brutally. They've shot the warrior and then they've gone and wiped out the family or wiped out the village. That's got to be paid back, people. So you get put in a coma that's supposed to be completely effective, but it's not. And you feel all of the needles, and you feel all of the incisions if they perform surgery. You feel every single thing, and you're unable to do anything with it. And you are suffering miserably. That's paying back part or all of the karma that you've gathered together from maybe several lifetimes of being cruel. Maybe you're a gangster, and you're responsible for chopping people up, shooting them, whatever. You pay that back. You become a gangster in your next lifetime, and that's what happens to you. Now, a lot of times the patient can leave completely, but they choose to hang around because if it happens suddenly, like a heart attack or a stroke or a car accident, everybody's in a state of shock. I mean, what happens to you when you hear that somebody you love has been injured or dropped dead or in a car accident? You're stunned. This gives the family time to acclimate to your not being around any longer. It gives them a chance to get the paperwork in order, to contact the attorney, to contact the priest. I don't know how many times I had last rites as a kid. To contact the priest or the rabbi or the minister. I'm a non-sectarian minister. I will go to certain hospitals for certain people who have been my clients for years. But you're saying to them, I love you enough to hang around so that you can get used to what's going on. And that's an act of love. That's a gift of your suffering because you're so frustrated and you don't want to be in this body. And it's torturous for you. But that's an act of love for the people you love and you care about. And sometimes it's a voluntary situation because maybe you were a scientist or a doctor in another lifetime and they were at a breakthrough point. But there weren't enough people, there weren't enough patients that had that particular illness or that circumstance that the medicines could be tested on. And you say, just as you're dying or even before you die, I volunteer to come back and be in this situation so this technique can be perfected. You're basically volunteering your life so that you can save others. That is a purposeful sacrifice on your part to help humanity. And don't forget, what's really interesting is cats in particular are basically taking human medication scaled down for their body weight. There's very little cat medication. It's mostly people medication. So if you loved animals, you might be doing the same thing for animals so that they can adjust, just like babies. Just like we know that the dosages for medicine are usually set up for men because they test on men, because women have their pesky periods, forgetting or not even realizing when they first started that men cycle every 28 to 30 days, women cycle every 14. Well, that's really annoying for the test results because your hormones change so drastically. So they don't bother with pesky women, and they just give them the same dosage as men. Believe me, there's a big difference between a 130-pound woman and a 200-pound man. So now they're trying to figure out the proper dosages for women and the proper dosages for children. And of course, the proper dosages for pussycats and puppy dogs, because we love our animals, and how to up it for, say, a horse. You are watching Linda Bennett at metaphysicallyspeaking.com. I can see the sign right there. My executive producer just put it up. And you can find me on metaspeak.com, on YouTube and Facebook. And you can find me on Blog Talk Radio and certain TV stations in your area. Just call and say, do you have Linda Bennett, metaspeak.com, metaphysicallyspeaking.com? And if they say, who the heck is that? Say, well, go online and find metaspeak.com and get her on the air.
How did you come up with Metaphysically Speaking?
That's such a great question. How did I come up with Metaphysically Speaking? Years ago, when I was offered a program for the first time, I had been guesting on another network, and then I was invited on somebody else's network to come up with a show. And I said, I've got to come up with a guy. I said, I'll come up with a name. And I was in meditation, and Yogananda, who started self-realization in California, I heard him say, Metaphysically Speaking. And I said, what a great name. That's a fabulous name. So I called the vice president of programming the next day, and I said, the name is Metaphysically Speaking. And he said, no, it's not. I said, yes, it is. No, it's not. Nobody's going to remember the name Metaphysically Speaking. I said, the right people will remember the name Metaphysically Speaking, and the mind needs 12 exposures to remember something, and 12 exposures, for instance, to purchase something. That's an advertising statistic. So therefore, if they hear the name 12 times, they'll remember it. No, they won't. Well, I said, if you want me to do the show, this is the name of the show, Metaphysically Speaking. So one day, I've told this story before, one day I was out gardening in the front of my house, and this little boy drove his bicycle by, and the next thing I know, he's spinning it around. I thought, oh my gosh, is he hurt? What's happening? I said, are you okay? He says, yes, what's your name? Metaphysically Speaking, you're on TV. Oh my God, I can't wait to tell my parents. Oh my God, I'm so excited. We love you. We love your show. And I thought, he remembers Metaphysically Speaking, but he doesn't remember Linda. That blew my mind. So I said, yes. So I said, yes. So he said, oh, I can tell my parents, right? Can I tell them where you live? I said, yes, as long as they just don't drop by. I said, what do you like about the show? And he said, well, he said, my favorite part is when you sit quietly and you meditate. Yes, people, I taught meditation on television. Every week we had a 5-minute meditation, which he also said wasn't going to work, but it did. And he said, I love that part. And he said, then when people call in and ask their questions, or you read the letters that people send to, I love that part, because I've got so many of those questions too. The kid was 9 years old, and he loves my show. Some of my biggest fans were kids, and I was the birthday present, the graduation present, the confirmation present for so many kids. So they're part of my biggest fan club. And the name Metaphysically Speaking has stuck. And I've never taken it off. I've never changed it. And it's been trademarked. If you find anybody else using Metaphysically Speaking, you contact us on email or call my office, because it's trademarked up the wazoo. The only thing we're not trademarked in, I think, is planets, space equipment, and sneakers. So therefore, it's not just, you trademark something and it's trademarked. No, no, no. There are 500 different categories, and you have to trademark in each particular category. So it is very expensive, it's time consuming, it's a pain in the neck, but other people like the name, and I cannot tell you what, over 25, over 30 people over the years have tried to steal my name. Not happening, people. So we monitor it as well, but there might be something local where you live and you find out that it's not me. And the only things I push, like Dr. Oz, people are sending out mailings and trying to say that Dr. Oz recommends. If I recommend it, if it appears at the end of the show, like Animal and Bird Medical Center of Palm Harbor, Dr. Herr, we still advertising, Julie?
If it's on the web.
If it's on my show,
Metaspeak.com.
Metaspeak.com, I am endorsing those products and services. I use them myself. I know they're great. If it's not, I don't know anything about them. I don't want to know anything about them. I want nothing to do with them. If I tell you, which I'll tell you right now, that a good magazine to subscribe to is Atlantis Rising, you can go on the web and find it. The only thing I don't like is not every article is vetted. It can be somebody's opinion. So that I don't like. But if you watch my show, you'll find out. Or you can email me and say, this has appeared in Atlantis Rising, and I want to know if it's legitimate. And we'll talk about it. So yes, I do, and I'm not getting paid for that. It's just an informative magazine. It comes 6 times a year. So, and they do make every effort to print your letter. If you send in a valid letter with a valid point, they'll make every effort to make sure that you are heard.
Let's say someone dies and you have been left behind.
Yes.
How do you behave?
Well, here's a point, and you have to backtrack. You have to say, even if you're identical twins, you have the same DNA, but you are different souls. And so therefore, you're born alone, you think alone, you process your life alone, and if you are married, for instance, or have children, they are accompanying you, but you are still you. You have your own identity. And just because your partner dies doesn't mean that you die. If a flower in your garden over here dies, that doesn't mean all the flowers die. That was their time. That was part of their journey. Your journey continues. Your journey on earth is over when you leave your physical body, or as people calling it, die. And you go off into the astral world for your experiences with your own guardian angel. You review your life. You see what you did right. You see what you did wrong. You see what you could have done better, whatever. And you make plans for your future life. And you spend time in the astral world going to school, basically. And you meet other loved ones, and you catch up, and you see your pussycats and puppy dogs and your horses or whatever animals you particularly love and have had some kind of impact in your life. And you spend time resting. Unless you've been cruel, then you have another experience. You go into the level after you've done your reviews and you don't meet your loved ones. You meet people you've had karma with who you've harmed or disappointed or weren't there for. And you relive their pain. So that's part of the astral experience. But the people you leave behind are here because they're supposed to be here. People that die in plane crashes. One of my students, one of our friends, had his sister and her husband die in a plane crash. Both died together. That was our karma. That they were married. Obviously, they're independent souls, but somehow it was planned that they crossed over together. And that can happen. Everybody on a plane that crashes and dies, that was their group karma. And you think, why so many people? Well, so many people needed to die. Maybe they died at 40 because at 50, they were going to get a horrible, horrible cancerous occurrence in their lives. And they were going to suffer. And they weren't ordained for that particular karma. That was not supposed to be their karma, so they die before it happens. Maybe there was going to be a horrible car accident. There was no way they could avoid it. Look at what's happening everywhere across the country with the snowstorms. And they die, and it's a horrible death. Or maybe they lingered there in the cold for hours and hours and hours, and they weren't supposed to have that happen. When you die in a mass event, you're there for a purpose. Maybe you were the mastermind or the one who pressed the button for others to die in a mass event. Do you think those psychos who caused 9/11 are in a pleasant place with their 72 versions? They don't even understand why they're supposed to have 72 virgins. That's the Hebraic name for the masculine aspect of God. And if they only knew that, they'd fall down in exhaustion and dead and from shock. And a virgin is better than a woman with life experience? I don't think so. You had a question about the previous show about hanky-panky, which we'll get to before the show's over. Do you think those people get off easily? They do not. They get to experience the pain and the misery and the shock and the despair of every single person on that plane, every single person in that building that they smashed down, every single person that they blew up in a bunker. Every single misery that they created, they have to live over and over and over again. And then they get put in an area with people just like them. And that's all they experience, is duplicates of themselves. And they get let out when the universe thinks that they should be let out, because they're constantly talked to by angels. And when they are truly remorseful, they get a chance to get out and they get put in a quiet zone to review their lives. And we'll do more of that on another show because it's very complex, but simple and just. So the people who are left behind are meant to miss the person they loved. You never stop loving someone. Well, you might, but you never stop loving someone basically that you've loved. You always wish them well. And if you have a spiritual understanding instead of a religious understanding where you're terrified that your mate could be in hell or your kids could be in hell, maybe your kids, for instance, they say you're supposed to die before your kids do. Not necessarily. Suppose your child was only supposed to live for 5 years. Maybe it was the first time on this planet or the last time they needed to be on this planet. And all they needed was 5 years of physical karma. They're doing great. You miss them. You miss your pussycats and puppy dogs who were close to you, snuggled with you every night. You miss your child. But maybe that's what the time was allotted for them to experience the karma they needed, and now they're free. That's great. It's not great for you because you love them. And we tend to adore small things. Cuddly things, small things, cute things. And we think that's a bigger tragedy. No, it's a bigger relief. For them. For you, you're supposed to understand that. And you're supposed to do something positive with your life. Use it as a wake-up call. Maybe you don't do anything for anybody. Maybe you're a selfish individual, and losing this special individual to you wakes you up and makes you say, you know, you think life is long, but when you get to be 30 or 40, you think half my life is over. Where did it go? What have I done? What have I meant on this planet? And that's the opportunity for you to suddenly make changes. Maybe you want to volunteer for Meals on Wheels. Maybe you want to volunteer to bring magazines to your hospital. Maybe you want to volunteer to be the recycling person in your neighborhood. Maybe you want to help out at the cat sanctuary or your local vet or the Humane Society, if you have a good one. I'm looking for no-kill shelters, people. Some animals are feral and they need to be put to sleep. You can't adopt a feral animal. Can't be trained, can't be loved, cuddled with. It hides continuously, comes out to be fed, goes to the pan, runs under the bed again. You can't adopt those cats, but maybe if there's a large enough no-kill shelter that they have a section for feral cats, they can be kept alive. But they would be my first choice to be euthanized, not just a cat because it's older. Pinky lived to be 17. Gracie was 19. Not Gracie. Angel was 19. Cuddles was 16. So you can give a cat a very long, happy life. You can give a dog a very long, happy life. But say you can't have dogs or cats where you're living. Volunteer at a shelter. You can buy food, you can change the pans, you can give them baths, you can trim the nails, you can comb them and brush them. You do all kinds of things to help the critters. You satisfy that need to have critter contact, and you're helping them. There aren't enough people in the shelters to help the critters. There isn't enough money. Buying bags of food, good quality food. Don't buy this junk. And you know what? Don't buy junk food that shouldn't even be manufactured anyway, because your cat or dog is not getting the proper nutrition. They're going to develop health problems. Buy the good food. Look at the ingredients. First ingredient should be meat, not meat byproducts, because that'd be a claw. That could be a hair. That could be an eyeball. There's no nutrition in that. So buy a good quality food, and the cats and dogs eat less because they're getting nourished. They tend to overeat if they have cheap food, and you think, this cat never stops eating. The cat's starving to death. You can buy bags of good food and bring them to the shelter. Lots of things you can do. Just to do something good for somebody else or something else. Use the death of a loved one to remind you that life is short, and you need to make sure that you are a contributing factor on the planet, not a draining factor. Be a contributor. You're watching Linda Bennett, metaphysicallyspeaking.com, and you type in metaspeak.com on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll pop right up. We've got a recommended reading list. We've got a recommended TV show list. We've got different aspects of God so you can understand different things in your life, and all kinds of other goodies, plus past shows, past radio shows, shows I did years ago that my fabulous videographer edited down for you so that you can watch them, and you can see what I talked about years ago as well as what I'm talking about now. Anything you want is on there. And remember, we do want to hear your questions, so please email them in. And you can call my office or you can send them email. What topics you want to see covered on the show? What questions do you have? Did I not make something clear on a particular show? Do you have further questions about it? What happened in your life and how does that relate? Don't ask me personal questions about whether you should stay married to this idiot, because that's what a consultation is for. But anything that everybody would be interested in, and frankly, they don't care what dress you wear to the wedding. So make sure that there are questions that other people will be interested in. Did I cover everything? Was I a good girl?
Yes, you are. Let's talk about...
Wait, my phone number, 727-736-4567. I got the thumbs up, yes?
Let's talk about sort of a wrap-up thought here in our final 15 minutes, which is reincarnation. Because that's what you've been talking a lot about. They're not calling it reincarnation.
Yes, well, reincarnation, I'm going to have my little water because I'm getting thirsty. A friend of mine gave me one of these for Christmas. And I called her up, and all I did was make the squeaking sound because the thing squeaks to high heaven. So of course I can't use it here, and I can't use it in class. And she said, what is that whistling sound? Who is this? Oh, it's Linda. What is that whistling sound? That's why I don't use your sippy cup, Patty, because it makes a whistling sound. Reincarnation is the law of life, of physical life, cycling, going into the astral world, cycling back to physical life, etc., etc. Life is a circle, okay? No beginning, no end. God is a circle, no beginning, no end. That's why if you say, I'm a yogi and all I want is a circle around my neck, great. I wear different things. This is a Buddha. This is the female aspect of God. I have double circles, the male-female energy. I have a cross. I have an Ankh, meaning eternal life. A little elephant. Oh, I'm banging the microphone. Sorry, people. The little elephant represents Ganesha, who's been very good to me in my life. You can wear anything, or you can wear just a circle. It's a spiritual understanding of how the universe works. Planet cycle, physical being cycle, giraffes, elephants, pussycat cycle. Remember in your science class you learned that energy can't be destroyed. It just gets recycled. It gets changed into something else. But your spirit continues. That is the essence from the God force. Now, why God created life to begin with, why God split us out from itself to individual lifetimes, I think the idea sucks, quite frankly. It's awful. We would be much happier home in the God force. Why this is happening is beyond me, and I have never met a priest or a rabbi that I used to counsel, or a minister or a Greek Orthodox priest who could explain it to me, because they don't understand it any more than I do. And if you think about it any more than you do, what's the point? If it was perfect to begin with, why muck it up by having people take physical bodies? And it ain't all that convenient in a physical body, is it? No. You have to bathe every day, you have to shower, you have to brush your teeth, you have to go to the dentist, you have to go to the doctor. Pain in the neck. You have to schlep to work every day. It's a pain in the neck. So therefore, and then hoping that we get back faster, reincarnation is when we took a little look outside of the God force and we said, oh, what's that over there? You asked a question and that demands that you get an answer. And you said, okay, I got the answer. I ain't interested. I'm coming back home. You just pop right back to the God force. If you say, oh, that's interesting, what's that over there? Now you're stretching a little further away from the God force. And here's the Gracie. I mentioned God, look who shows up. Wouldn't be funny if God was a cat. That's not true, but nevertheless. Gracie, sit down, be a little lady. Sit down, be a lady.
Not happening.
Cats have their own mind, just like dogs do. Okay, go get lost. Don't knock anything down. She's sitting right next to my crystals. We'll do a show on crystals as well. We've had some requests for that. We don't need to see that you have an itch. Everything gets recycled. There is a purpose for everything. If we didn't have a sun, we wouldn't have a solar system. If we didn't have a moon, we wouldn't have tides. We wouldn't have a balance of gravity. The thought process that went into creating physical life is unimaginable. Many years ago, I said, yes, we're in a solar system and we're in a galaxy, but one day they're going to find out that we're in another galaxy that's even bigger, and that there are other galaxies within a bigger galaxy, and they're going to find out there are super mega galaxies. Well, now everybody knows there are super mega galaxies. I was called crazy and I didn't take research astronomy, so therefore how could I possibly know? I was just new. And so therefore everything has a purpose. And reincarnation is the lessons learned in physical and astral, that's without the physical body, existences. And when you complete the need to be in a physical body, you don't come back into physical body anymore. And you're not just on this planet, you're on other planets. There are billions of other planets you could be on. I personally have had UFO experiences. I personally have met people from other planets. You can always tell they're human. You can always tell that they're people. And you think in thought. And so therefore, the question they asked me predominantly was, please explain humans to us because we don't understand them. And I said, I don't either. You came to the wrong place. But we had other business to attend to, and I was given information. And yes, there were physical checkups. I was never damaged. I was never hurt. I was never, now she's on her little post, on her little pedestal right here, because it has to be more comfortable. I was never hurt in any way. I was never terrorized. And most people aren't either. And this happens because you are comfortable with your intergalactic travel and living on other planets. And you've made agreements to have checkups. They're not taking people's blood because they want to become zombies. They're taking your blood to check your health. They're taking your blood to check your levels. And are they making hybrids? Yes. Because the air content is not so terrific. I don't know how many thousands of people die every day in China. But that's one of the most polluted places on the face of the earth. And it's blowing over into Canada and the United States. We're not too happy with that. So therefore, if you have UFO contact, it's part of your reincarnative lesson process. It's just like visiting friends and relatives in New Jersey or Cincinnati or Paris. You're visiting friends and friends are visiting you from another solar system. You have friends everywhere. You've lived on other planets, so have they. And they're coming here now because they're more technologically advanced, and they're trying to figure out a way to be able to keep humanity alive after we have, look what happens to the air quality every time there's a huge volcanic eruption. Even earthquakes cause a disruption in the Earth's magnetic field and in the pollution levels. Every year, winds and sands come over in these winds from Africa. I can tell before they get here because the mist of the sand is coming, and I start sneezing and sneezing and sneezing for months. It's a phenomena that happens during the summertime. So everything is changing, and they're trying to make sure that humans can continue on the earth. That's part of the reincarnative process. Everything evolves, it changes, it reforms. And you may say, well, we were taught there's no such thing as reincarnation. Well, if you want to read the Bible, Jesus talks about it. Because he says, before he was so-and-so, he was Elijah. Before so-and-so, I was Elias. Or vice versa. Every basic religion that is not Western, that's Jewish, Catholic, Islamic, talks about reincarnation. And here's a big secret. If you study the Kabbalah, which is the Jewish mysticism, they talk about reincarnation. Their problem is they think everybody came from them, which is stupid, because humans have been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and the Jews have not. Sorry, but you're only about 3,000 or 4,000 years old in the very earliest parts. So they say you're reincarnated from one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, you weren't. Maybe you have been in one of those tribes, but that's not the whole existence of you. And so therefore, Huna, Aborigines, Native American spirits, all these other religions, South America, Central America, talk about the reincarnative spirit. African tribes talk about being reincarnated. So religion is man-made. They want you to think their way, so they will do what they want you to do. But that doesn't have anything to do with your soul. However, if you happen to be, are you raising your hand or giving me?
I just want to make sure we talk about meditation in these final few minutes.
Okay, hold on. And I lost my thought. What was I saying?
Sorry, if you happen to think that
If you happen to think that your religion is right, but you have an open heart, God bless you. Make that part of your reincarnative process. Make that part of your lesson. And then when you cross over and you look at the rest of the universe, you're going to think, what an idiot I was. Everybody's not Catholic. I can't believe it. Well, if I get my hands on that priest, fine. Make that part of your lesson. But a way to prove to yourself that we're all part of the same God force and not a religion is to meditate. Now, we've talked about meditation on the show before. You can find it on one of our previous shows. It's extraordinarily easy. You don't get hypnotized. People who don't want you to meditate are people who are fearful of your spiritual progress because they're afraid you'll leave them behind. And you know what? Sometimes you do. And that's a tragedy of marrying the wrong person. The last show we did was about marrying the wrong person and marrying the right person. If you're marrying the wrong person, they want you to stay exactly as you are. They don't want you to grow. They don't want you to move forward. They don't want you to evolve. They want you to stay the same. Well, that's not why you're born. You're born to move forward. You went to school to learn. Do you want to stop in first grade? Or do you want to keep on moving through your life? And when you move through your life, you find out there's more than what you thought. And meditation will open those doors for you. You sit quietly. You focus right here above the nose, not way up here, between the eyes, right here. And you can quietly say Hail Mary, Hail Mary. You can say God, God, God. You can say angels. You can say Om. Quietly and focus. Focus on the breath. Sit up nice and straight. Don't lay down, because when you're laying down or plugged into earphones listening to alternative music, or what do they call it on whatever thing it's called on TV? Alpha waves, whatever. You're listening to alpha waves. The silence within. God is found in silence. And if you do this, I promise you, and if you're consistent and find a place every day where you meditate, in the same place, and that energizes. This cat loves the meditation room. She loves pulling my meditation shawl down and rolling herself up in it, but nevertheless, animals go where the energy is. And if you just open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you're going to know that God and the angels are always with you. It's Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking.